Okay, so you're hoping to impact a lot of people with this film.
Yeah.
What film impacted you so much that it influenced the way you made this movie? It could be fiction or a documentary.
I'm gonna say actually, I did my first big thing that I filmed was for Sesame Street, and you know how Sesame Street does those videos of how things are made, or like kids in dance class, or like those other side videos. Right, exactly. Okay, so a neighbor in the building I grew up in was dating a cameraman from Sesame Street. And she used to teach at this school, this preschool called Children's Liberation, and they were taking all the kids to a community garden to, show the things that they'd grown and eat, and just talk about gardening for Sesame Street for a little short film they were going to make. And she paid me $20 to be on set so I could keep the kids wrangled that weren't being used for narration or being on camera. And you can see me in this video. I'm like this tall, lanky, 11-year-old girl who got paid $20. I was so stoked. And I narrate a little bit on that. And it's talking about this community garden where there's turtles and the vegetables and the fruits and the kids just really just being in this space. And I grew up in community gardens. I grew up in New York, concrete jungle, absolutely. But what I remember vividly about my childhood were the weeping willows in the community gardens on Avenue C, and just how we could just go straight upstate and be camping. You could leave the concrete jungle and all of a sudden be in just full nature. And I'm from Coney Island, so the beach and the ocean, and I've watched a lot of it change. They're doing all of these precautions now for flooding in Manhattan. The boardwalks are not nearly the same as they used to be when I was a kid. They're all filled with sand underneath. I have watched in my short time on this planet really critical, devastating changes that are not solution-based, they're Band-Aids. And this is a project, all these years later, I get to narrate and participate in a film that reconnects us to nature and our connection to it, that could solve a very big problem for not just ourselves, but for the future.
Now, how do you, one person, affect change in not just the common people, but also the corporations? I mean, has making this kind of influenced endorsements that you do, made you think differently about them?
I don't think about stuff like that, no. I mean, I guess you could, but I feel profoundly grateful that we're all in this moment together, talking about things that maybe in the past we wouldn't really be allowed to. When you see the film, you'll see people are really truly struggling and getting their message out and getting their inventions out, and the challenge and the pushback is very real. But at the same time, we have this ability to reach out to each other and connect with each other and disseminate information that we're not seeing on our news and we're not seeing in the greater narrative, and still be informed and still be connected and still make a difference and an impact. And that's what I'm really grateful about this film, is that if we didn't make it, we would not have access to this information, but we did, and now you do. And so rather than focus on that negative or what could be of the thing that could have been most tragic is not me maybe not getting an endorsement. The thing that would be most tragic is you not knowing that there's an incredible invention, or that soil could capture carbon, and we could be really thinking in a really quick scale how we can make a huge difference on a climate change issue, all of us, rather than just feeling scared and bombarded and hopeless.
Now, biopics are, I think, bigger in the last 2 years than they have been, even before that. Is there an unsung hero in all of this that you've discovered while making this project that you think there should be a biopic about?
I mean, I think there's many. Right now, I got to meet a lot of the young Native kids who came from Standing Rock, who were, thinking that they can make a difference even when the elders in their community were thinking that might not be possible, because the AIM movement was so devastating, because of the history and mistreatment and the breaking of treaties of our Native people for generations. And these kids said, no, we're going to run. We're going to go to D.C. And they wrangled some of their elders to be supportive of them. And then Shailene Woodley and a bunch of us were all able to be there in New York for the first run that they did around Union Square. And there was not a lot of people, not a lot of kids. but we watched these kids, and then this movement grow powerfully that got people aware of the fact that Indigenous people are on the front lines of climate change across the board. 40%, I think it's like 30 or 40% of all murders that occur across the planet happen against Indigenous people. And it's like 1 or 2 Indigenous climate change activists are murdered every week. These are the ones who are protecting the Amazon, who are protecting our rivers, who are fighting for keeping our trees, who are protecting our oceans, and we are not talking about them, we're not celebrating them. You have Greta, who's out there doing wonderful climate change stuff, and the news will cover her, but they won't cover the Indigenous people that she has on stage with her. So that's who I would talk about, is the people who've been on the front lines of this for generations and have been giving us the solutions for generations and are still there with that wisdom, ready to help us grow to another level.